Hello, I'm back. There's a couple people commenting on these videos, which is awesome. I can't believe there's people watching it besides the people I'm sending it to. I love reading fan fiction and getting drunk. So just to videotape it is no big deal at all. It's a joy. So I'm gonna do another one. It's Christmas where I am, so Merry Christmas, or whatever you celebrate, or if you don't celebrate anything, I hope you're having a good day. So I'm here, got Santa with me. It's going to be accompanying us this time. I have a couple ciders and fruit beers that I'm going to be doing today. So the first one is pear secco, which I'm very excited about because Aziraphale likes pears, so it's perfect. I'll start with that. Then I have a Pressed Tart by Rheingeist, which is a Berliner style Weiss fruit beer. It's a lot of words happening. So I'm gonna go into the pear secco first. Oh, that's good. So Santa also wanted a drink. So I said, sure, you've had a long day. Get yourself a drink. So here we have, it's a White Claw, I'm sorry to say. Oh, Santa. That is disappointing. But, whatever it takes, if you want to be a white bitch, that's fine. So there you go. Cheers. Just about done with the pear secco. I feel like it took me longer than normal to drink this, but I don't remember what time I started. So, and I'm tired, so I don't think I'm really recognizing the passage of time as I normally do. But just down to the last bit here. All gone. And then I'll start in on the Berliner style Weiss fruit beer. Berry jam and punch you out tartness. So we'll see how long this one takes. I'm not a huge beer fan, so if it tastes a lot like beer, it'll take me a little while to get it down. That's not bad. It does taste more like beer than I usually like, but I'll be able to drink it. I got this. Okay. I ended up not liking that beer, but I drank it. I still have a little bit left that I'll finish, and I apologize if I make a bitter beer face, because I'm sure I will. But I'm almost done with this thing, and I see it's only 4% alcohol by volume. Like, why even does anyone bother with beer? Like, what is the point? Thankfully, the pear secco was 6%, so I got a nice buzz going on. So let me finish this. And I apologize again for my face. Not my favorite. If you like beer, though, it's probably a good bet. It has a nice bit of fruit taste in it. Okay, so I got the okay from 2 different authors to do their fics, and I will definitely do another one of the Sozzled in Soho series, as long as the author's okay with it. I haven't checked with them yet. But that's 3 that I'll definitely do at some point. So, the one I'm doing today is Getting It Wrong by Quilly. The author made a specific point to say that it was inspired by a work by Cliopadra, which I think if you're deep enough in the Good Omens fandom to even find these videos, you're probably familiar with their artwork. So I'll put the link in the description. I'll put the link to the fic, and I'll put the link to the art. So you might want to go check out the art first, because I'm not going to describe it, because I am not an artist, and I'll just be ridiculous trying to describe the art. The little comic she did. Trying to describe the little comic they did, which is hilarious, as all their comics are insane and awesome. So Maybe pause this and go look at the art. So Getting It Wrong by Quilly. I think this is 4 pages. So I'll help Santa here out with the White Claw. Maybe twice as I read. And we'll just take it from there. So let me get comfortable here. Okay. Getting It Wrong by Quilly. Rating is general audience, which, considering the comic, is surprising. I'm interested to see where this goes. Additional tags: miscommunication, the ambiguity of sleeping together, attempted seduction, fluff and humor, soft Crowley, and embarrassed Aziraphale. Getting It Wrong by Quilly. Summary: Crowley says one thing, Aziraphale hears another. Notes: directly inspired by Cleopadra's incredibly funny comic. Couldn't get a slight continuation out of my head for weeks. Okay, here we go. Things had been going well after Armageddon. Maybe a little too well. Aziraphale was all too used to Crowley's warmth-seeking behavior come November, and the move to the South Downs served to only make him more open about communicating what he needed. I love it when they're in the South Downs. Aziraphale suspected it had something to do with the diminishing walls between them that could only come from sharing the same space. Their friendship was long-lived, but even people who knew each other so well could be prone to miscommunication. Maybe the familiarity made it harder in some ways, like being on the same page, but in entirely different books. But more often than not, they read each other correctly. It wasn't that much of a surprise to Aziraphale, then, when Crowley, hot chocolate mug between his chilly fingers and blanket over his shoulders, shyly looked over the rim of his glasses and asked, "Would you maybe want to sleep with me tonight, Angel?" Let me get the Crowley voice right here before we get into more of the dialogue. "Would you maybe want to sleep with me tonight, Angel?" Okay. Here we go. It's not bad. I got that in a white elephant party gift. It's better than the beer. Okay. "Would you maybe want to sleep with me tonight, Angel?" Oh. Physical intimacy had been on the rise between them since before they bought this lovely little cottage, and had progressed to cautious kisses in the in-between hours when Crowley was sleepy or Aziraphale was lost in a book, and either one or both of them were a little too out of it to give it much more thought in the moment. Out of the moment was another thing entirely. Aziraphale hadn't been expecting Crowley to make that leap, and what a leap it was. But he did love to jump headfirst into things, after all. Aziraphale smiled into his hot chocolate mug at the openly hopeful look on Crowley's face. "Of course, my dear," Aziraphale said warmly. Crowley's smile melted into open, sappy affection, which Aziraphale couldn't help but return. All right. There were a few hours yet until Crowley's usual self-prescribed bedtime. Time to make some preparations. I can't help seeing the art of these two. It makes it funnier. The bedroom was Crowley's, of course, because he was the one who slept. But Aziraphale, guardian of the Eastern Gate and known hedonist, had a few tricks up his sleeves that would only take a small miracle to move from his closet to Crowley's bed. The timing would be key. Aziraphale had it in mind to perform a proper seduction, and he couldn't do that if he gave away his hand too early. The rest was just lying around the house. Good champagne, of course, and a charger to rest them on. It was too late in the season to coax Crowley's rose bushes into giving up some of their blooms for the cause, but a quick trip into the town grocery store took care of that. A rather more scrumptious silk duvet and pillowcase set, hiding away in the linen closet. And candles. Couldn't forget those, of course. Mood lighting was everything. Over dinner. Footnote time. Got a one here. Over dinner. Oh, here we go. Crowley's turn to cook, and he had outdone himself with the roasted potatoes this time. I love roasted potatoes. Of course, Aziraphale would love roasted potatoes. Sounds good. Over dinner, Aziraphale weathered Crowley's increasingly bashful glances with the kind of practiced indulgence garnered over several thousand years of doing just that. They did the dishes together in silence, occasionally bumping each other's hips, and Crowley's hands seemed incapable of not brushing Aziraphale's every now and then. This was going to be fun, Aziraphale realized, with the sort of wiggle not usually seen by others outside of a very specific set of circumstances. Private wiggles. Private wiggles, that's so sweet. Crowley made it an hour after dinner before his fidgeting fingers and tapping feet drove him upright from the couch, where Aziraphale had been reading and Crowley lounging. Bedtime, do you think? Crowley said, his voice going for smooth but strangled by obvious nerves. The poor dear, Aziraphale sighed, smiling as he closed his book. Of course, dearest, if you wish, Aziraphale said, and smothered his laugh as Crowley rocketed up the stairs of the cottage. Eager thing, wasn't he? Aziraphale stood, brushed off his trousers, and followed with a saunter. Ah! Aziraphale is sauntering! And followed with a saunter that would have made his demon proud, had he been there to see it. No matter. He would witness similar soon enough. Oh my gosh, that's so sweet to think of Aziraphale sauntering. Crowley was holed up in the bathroom when Aziraphale made it up the stairs, which was perfect. Aziraphale walked into Crowley's room and cracked his knuckles. To work, then. He is very serious about this. And good for him. Aziraphale had just lit the last candle. Aziraphale had just lit the last candle when there was movement from the bathroom signaling Crowley's imminent approach, and Aziraphale hurriedly draped himself into position, making sure all the best angles were on display. He wanted to do this right, after all. Crowley deserved nothing less from him. Sweet. He arranged his face into the seductive smirk he'd perfected in the 1880s, as Crowley's voice sounded from the hall. So, I know this might not be Crowley made a choked off, strangled noise as he rounded the corner, and Aziraphale had three very quick realizations. First, Crowley was wearing pajamas, with the kind of soft, lived-in look of real clothes, and not miracle manifestations. Second, he looked surprised, but not the particularly good kind of surprised, and fear was close on surprise's heels. Third, Aziraphale had made a grave miscalculation. I'm doing your work here, Santa. I'm drinking this White Claw. Okay. Third, Aziraphale had made a grave miscalculation. Oh, Aziraphale said, because he couldn't seem to say anything else. Crowley's face was a few shades darker than his hair, and he'd entirely stopped breathing. Oh, you meant... Crowley made several consonant noises that had the potential to be words if his shock hadn't strangled them in their cribs. If his shock hadn't strangled them in their cribs. Aziraphale carefully rose from the bed. Oh my goodness. Aziraphale carefully rose from the bed, not wanting to tip over the champagne, and approached Crowley slowly, cautiously, not at all like he'd been planning all afternoon. So now we're out of the comic and into the new stuff. I'm very excited. It didn't seem to help matters as Crowley went from not breathing to hyperventilating, his uncovered eyes fully yellow as he grasped for the door jamb and leaned into it like he would fall if there wasn't some kind of support. It also didn't help that Aziraphale realized he was a little taller than Crowley in the pink suede pumps he'd chosen for the occasion. And Crowley, looking up at him with that expression, was nothing short of awful. Oh, my dear, Aziraphale banished his nice lingerie in favor of soft tartan flannel pajamas, his height back to normal, and he reached for Crowley but didn't touch. My darling, I'm so sorry. I didn't hear. Aziraphale flung the roses and champagne into the ether and extinguished the candles with a flick of the wrist as he gently corralled Crowley towards the bed, not quite daring to touch him beyond steering his shoulders. This is getting really soft. The comic wasn't this soft. The comic was kind of feral, I guess is the right word, with his little gremlin face when he realized he was wrong, Aziraphale. But I love him when he's soft, so this is good. He's gently corralling Crowley towards the bed, not quite daring to touch him beyond steering his shoulders. They spent the next miserable minutes with Crowley having a come-apart, which culminated in a soft pop as his black-scaled body booked it for under the bed, and Aziraphale sat on the floor with a sigh. He couldn't believe he'd misinterpreted quite so badly. Did he turn into a snake? There's a note here, number 2. To be fair, Crowley had used very vague language, and really, wasn't it humanity's fault for having so many euphemisms in the first place? Crowley, Aziraphale said softly, I'm sorry, dear. Please come out. There was a sort of wailing hiss from under the bed. So he is a snake. Ah, poor fella. There was a sort of wailing hiss from under the bed. Aziraphale felt his face starting to crumple. I've rather made a mess of it, haven't I? Aziraphale said softly, leaning his head back against the mattress. Very well. You don't need to come out if you don't want to. Do you want me to leave? There was a slight slithering noise at the end. There was a slight slithering noise as the end of Crowley's tail cautiously made its way out from under the bed and wrapped in a very loose coil around Aziraphale's wrist. All right, I'll stay, Aziraphale promised, and the coil retreated. They sat in silence for several long, agonizing minutes. This is the softest one I've ever read, and I'm getting sappy here. Oh my gosh, it's so sweet. It did strike me as a bit odd that we jumped straight to that without having a proper snog first, Aziraphale said, hoping Crowley found his usage of slang amusing. Given the snort that emitted from under the bed, he'd succeeded. He's so sweet. He's trying to help him out with slang. Oh. I suppose we haven't ever really talked about it. Well, I suspect you know my feelings on the matter. I would very gladly sleep with you in all senses of the word, but not before you are ready, my dear. I didn't mean to frighten you. Not frightened, Crowley hissed, and his wedge-shaped head poked into Aziraphale's hand. I'm just surprised. Of course, Aziraphale said, and tried to bite down on his smile as Crowley nudged his head under Aziraphale's hand, commanding and submitting to pets. This is too sweet. Your scales are lovely and warm right now, Crowley dear. Come out from under the bed. I can't take it all, okay? This is really sweet. I'm going to cut this out, and I'm going to finish this, and then we're going to read the last page. Sound good? Sounds good. Sorry, I got distracted with a phone call, which is a rare occurrence this late at night. But I have the White Claw almost done. And because it's been a while, I'm especially buzzy. So this last page should be very interesting. But let me finish this. There we go. So Crowley's a snake, and Aziraphale's trying to get him out from under the bed. Crowley seemed to consider it, then slithered out from under the bed, laying his coils across Aziraphale's lap and snuggling into them as Aziraphale continued stroking his scales. Not frightened, Crowley repeated, rather more sternly. Want to do that later. You know, it's difficult to hold a proper conversation like this, dearest, Aziraphale hinted, and after a long-suffering, snaky sigh, Aziraphale's lap found itself full of gangly limbs instead. Crowley's face pushed into the crook of Aziraphale's neck. I do want that, Crowley muttered into his skin. Just wasn't expecting it right now, is all. He grabbed Aziraphale's hand and put it on his knee, and Aziraphale took the cue to begin rubbing circles into Crowley's back and soothing strokes, tracing his thumb across Crowley's knee as Crowley sighed and relaxed. After a while, Crowley snickered, and Aziraphale paused. You looked a right picture, Angel. Good enough to eat. Well, I did try my best, you know, Aziraphale sniffed, smiling into Crowley's hair. I'm delectable. He is delectable. I have a little bit of this left. There we go. I finished them all. Aziraphale's delectable. Confirmed. He probably should have been offended by Crowley bursting into laughter, but it was so much better than him being tense and miserable or in the middle of a panic attack, so Aziraphale allowed it. Crowley took his face out of Aziraphale's neck and kissed him on the cheek. That you are. Do you feel well enough to move to the bed, dearest? To sleep? Aziraphale asked, and Crowley stretched in Aziraphale's arms, then clambered to his feet. I guess, he said, and helped Aziraphale up. What on earth did you do to my bed? I've had the bedspread put away for a special occasion, Aziraphale said, refusing to look Crowley in the eye as he walked around the bed to the other side. I'll change it back. No, leave it, Crowley said, and Aziraphale blinked. Crowley grinned. Look soft. With very little ceremony, an angel and a demon climbed into bed together in the most literal sense, and with some awkward eye contact and throat clearing, and with some awkward eye contact and throat clearing, carefully maneuvered into each other's arms. That's so sweet. Oh, this is so sweet. I wasn't expecting this much sweetness. There was a little problem with elbows and one case of arm crushing, but they managed it, tucking against each other with the duvet pulled up around their shoulders. Quilly laid his head on Aziraphale's chest with a satisfied sigh. Man, this is sweet. Sleep well, dearest, Aziraphale said softly, snapping off the lights and returning his hand to Quilly's hair. Quilly gave a mumbling sort of return wish and fell asleep in the square of 3 breaths. And fell asleep in the space of 3 breaths. Aziraphale exhaled the breath his soul had been holding for the last half hour and relaxed. His soul was holding it, guys. He exhaled the breath his soul had been holding. I can't take it. It's so sweet. This kind of intimacy, more than any other, was what he truly wanted. The trust, the closeness, the warmth. They could figure out ways to express it later. For now, Aziraphale held Quilly and watched over his slumber. Ugh, my goodness, it's so sweet. I can't take it. I can't take it. That was so sweet. That was funny and sweet and wonderful to read. Thank you very much, Quilly. So, I'm very buzzy. But if you're watching this and you think that you would like to do something similar, I would love to watch it. I mean, do it however you want. Get drunk or don't get drunk. Go into it blind or have read it before. Send me a link and I will scream with you about it. Because this is so much fun. And I'm having a great time and I would love to watch other people do it. So if you want to, please do it and let me know. So thank you for watching. And I'll probably do 1 or 2 more at least. I hope you have a great holiday. And it's still Christmas here. So I'm going to go to bed because I'm tired. Bye.